So for these problems on your assignment, you're supposed to find the x-intercepts and then solve the equations, find the solutions, and then compare the x-intercepts with the solutions. So on number 1, we've got y equals x squared. So to find the x-intercepts, let's graph it, and when we graph it, we should have gotten this. So y equals x squared, you entered it, and here is the graph of the parabola for that equation. The x-intercept is that point right there where the graph is crossing the x-axis, and you should notice that it's only touching at one point right there, and that is at 0 on the x-axis. Alright, so it's just sitting right on the x-axis, so the x-intercept is 0. Now let's solve it. Let's see what we get. So to solve it, you first want to change y to 0, so you got 0 is equal to x squared, and that just means that if x squared is 0, x is going to be the positive or negative square root of 0, which obviously is just 0. So your solution is 0. Now remember, 0 doesn't mean no solution. 0 just means x equals 0. So what do you notice about the x-intercept and the solution? Obviously, the solution is the same as the x-intercept. On number 2, we have y equals x squared minus 4. So let's graph that. So go back here, I can just add a minus 4. And now on our graph, we have this parabola, and looking at this parabola, we see that one x-intercept is negative 2, the other x-intercept is positive 2, so the x-intercepts are 2 and negative 2. Now we want to solve the equation and find the solutions. First, make it equal to 0. I'm noticing, what are we noticing about this one that makes it easy to factor? Isn't that a difference of squares? So that means since you can take the square root of x squared and the square root of 4, you can write that as x plus 2 times x minus 2. And then when you solve each of those for x, you get x equals negative 2 or 2. Now remember, you could have also solved it. You could have also solved it by using the square root method. If x squared minus 4 equals 0, then you could add 4 to both sides, get x squared equals 4, and then take the square root of both sides, and you also get 2 or negative 2 as your solution. So two different ways to easily find the solution for that. So your solutions are 2 and negative 2. What do we notice? The x-intercepts are the same as the solutions. On 3, we want to graph this equation, x squared plus 7x plus 10. So I'm going to go back here, x squared plus 7x plus 10. And now we have our parabola here, and notice that it is crossing the x-axis at negative 2 and at negative 5. So the x-intercepts are negative 2 and negative 5. Okay, now we want to solve this and see what we get. So when we solve this, first make y 0. So now we've got 0 equals x squared plus 7x plus 10. That's pretty easy to solve by factoring. You can just write that as 0 equals x plus 5 times x plus 2, and then just make each one of those equal to 0. And when you solve for it, you get x is negative 5 or negative 2. So your solutions are x equals negative 2 and negative 5. And what do we notice about the x-intercepts and the solutions? They are exactly the same. And then on 4, x-intercepts, solve it. Let's graph it. X squared minus 6x plus 13. So x squared minus 6x plus 13. And and then find our graph. It's way up here, and what are you noticing? Your your x-axis is right here. Your parabola is here. That is never going to cross the x-axis. So what do we say? There are no x-intercepts. So that function has no x-intercept. Well, now let's solve it. We're going to make 0 equal to x squared minus 6x plus 13. If you quickly think, the only factors of 13 are 13 and 1, and there's no way that you could factor that to get a sum of negative 6. So this is not something we could easily factor. So what can we always do? We can just use the quadratic formula. So your a value would be 1, your b value would be negative 6, and c would be 13. Work through it. Substitute, work through it. You should end up with 6 plus or minus square root of negative 16 over 2. What do you notice about the b squared minus 4ac? Your discriminant is negative 16. Since your discriminant is negative, you can't take the square root of a negative number. What does that mean? There are no solutions to this quadratic equation. So, no solutions. What do we notice? No x-intercepts means no solution. Okay? So what did we learn about solutions of quadratic equations? The solutions, when we talk about the solutions of quadratic equations, all that means is what the x-intercepts are on the graph of that parabola. Alright? So solutions of a quadratic equation are just the x-intercepts for that graph. It's that simple. Okay?